All right, settle in. This is the kind of story that wants crackling firelight, cold knees, and the sense that the dark beyond the trees is listening. The Whistling Man of Blackfell. They tell this story up on the moors, where the land rises into long-backed hills and the wind never quite stops moving. It's usually told late, after the tea's gone cold, after the fires burn down to embers, because it's not a story that likes company. Blackfell sits just beyond a scattering of stone cottages in the north of England. It's not marked clearly on most maps. Farmers know it, walkers avoid it, and shepherds swear the sheep won't graze there after sunset. The fell itself isn't dramatic. No cliffs, no peaks, just a wide stretch of heather, peat bog, and old, patient stone. But there's a feeling to it. A weight. As though the land remembers more than it should. The story usually begins with Thomas Hale, because stories like this always do better when they begin with someone ordinary. Thomas Hale was a railway clerk from Leeds, the sort of man who liked timetables, clean boots, and walks on weekends when the weather behaved. In the autumn of 1912, he took a week's holiday in the village of Marinshaw, renting a room above the local pub, the Crown and Anchor, which smelled permanently of damp wool and ale. On his first evening, Thomas asked the landlord about walking routes. "Plenty of footpaths," the landlord said, polishing a glass that would never quite be clean. "Just don't cross Blackfell." Thomas smiled politely. "Why not?" The landlord paused. "Just a fraction too long. Ground's bad," he said finally. "Bog'll take you if you're careless." A woman at the bar snorted into her drink. "That's not why," she said. "Tell him proper." The landlord shot her a look. No sense filling his head. Thomas laughed it off. He'd heard village superstition before. Every place had its ghost, its warning, its don't go there. Still, later that night, as he lay in bed listening to the wind push at the eaves, he realized no one in the pub had laughed with him. The next morning dawned pale and dry, rare weather, the kind that feels borrowed. Thomas packed a lunch, took his walking stick, and set off early. He followed a stone wall for a mile or so before the land opened out, the village shrinking behind him. Blackfell lay ahead. He knew it immediately, though nothing marked it. The air felt different, thinner, somehow. The wind dropped away, leaving a silence that pressed against his ears. Thomas hesitated. Then, with the stubborn confidence of a man who'd never had the world prove him wrong, he crossed the boundary. At first, the walk was pleasant enough. Heather brushed his boots, and the ground held firm. He walked for perhaps half an hour when he heard it. A whistle. Low. Tuneless. Not a melody, just a wandering sound, as if someone were trying to remember a song they'd never learned properly. Thomas stopped. The whistle came again, closer this time, drifting on a breeze that hadn't been there before. "Hello," he called. The sound stopped. He waited. Nothing. Feeling faintly foolish, Thomas continued on. He told himself it was a shepherd, or the wind through a hollow stone. 10 minutes later, the whistle returned, behind him now. Thomas turned sharply, heart thudding. There was no one there. Just the land. Flat. Open. Empty. He didn't like that. Sound carried strangely on the moor, but not that strangely. He checked his watch and decided he'd gone far enough. Turning back, he headed for the way he'd come. Except the path wasn't there. The stone wall had vanished. In its place was more heather, more bog, stretching in every direction. Thomas felt a cold prickle climb his spine. He walked faster, then faster still, choosing what felt like the right direction, though he couldn't have said why. The ground grew softer, sucking faintly at his boots. Then the whistle came again, right beside him. This time, it had a rhythm. 2 short notes. A pause. 1 long note. Thomas broke into a run. The ground gave way beneath him, and he went down hard, hands plunging into black peat. He dragged himself free, panting, mud streaked up his sleeves. When he looked up, he saw the man. He stood about 20 yards away, half-turned, as though he hadn't quite decided whether to face Thomas or not. He was tall. Unnaturally tall. His coat hung from him in a way that suggested too many joints beneath. His hat sat low, shadowing his face. The whistle came from him. Not from his mouth, from somewhere deeper, as though his chest were hollow and the sound echoed inside it. "Good morning," Thomas said, "because sometimes politeness is the only weapon you have left." The man tilted his head. "You're off the path," he said. His voice was wrong. Not accented, flattened, like a voice that had been worn smooth by too much use. "I seem to be," Thomas replied. "Could you tell me the way back to Marinshaw?" The man raised a long, thin arm and pointed, straight across the bog. "That way," he said. "Follow the whistle if you lose yourself." Something in Thomas snapped then. Instinct, maybe, or whatever part of the human mind recognizes a predator even when it's smiling. "No," he said. "I think I'll go this way." He stepped sideways. The man stepped too, always keeping the same distance. "You don't want to be rude," the man said softly. "Not out here." The whistle began again, louder now, filling the air until Thomas felt it buzzing in his teeth. Thomas turned and ran. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs screamed. The ground pulled at him, tried to claim him, but he didn't stop. The whistle followed, sometimes ahead of him, sometimes behind, sometimes inside his own head. Just as he thought he'd collapse, he burst through a curtain of gorse and stumbled onto the stone wall. The sound stopped. The air rushed back. The wind returned, loud and real. Thomas didn't look back. He vaulted the wall and didn't slow until the village roofs came into view. Thomas Hale left Marinshaw the next morning. He told no one what he'd seen. Years later, after the war, after the trains had changed and the world had learned new ways to be cruel, he read a newspaper article about a body found on Blackfell. A shepherd. Missing for weeks. No sign of injury. The article mentioned one odd detail. They found his lungs full of peat, it said, as though he'd been breathing the ground itself. Thomas folded the paper away and never walked the moors again. The villagers still tell the story. They say the whistling man was once human, a guide, a pathfinder, paid to lead travelers across the fell safely. But one winter, he took a shortcut, left the path, sank into the bog with a dozen souls following behind him. The land kept him. Now he keeps others. If you ever walk near Blackfell and hear a whistle, low and wandering, don't answer it. Don't follow it. And whatever you do, don't let it teach you the tune.